The Ottawa Senators look to build on last year's success, but are they ready to take a next step forward? Brandon Pillar of Sen Central and Locked On Senators joins us to talk about that and more next on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here. Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the co-host of Sen Central, aka Locked On Senators, Brandon Pillar. And Brandon, great to have you back on the show. And are you ready for a year where the Senators can build on last year's success?
Absolutely. Yeah. First off, thanks for having me, Gil. I'm very excited to be back on Locked On NHL as we get closer and closer to the NHL regular season. But yes, this is a fun time for Ottawa Senators fans, and it's a little different than years past, Gil, because finally they snapped that 7-year playoff drought. Sure, you get bounced in round one to our most hated rival, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and it didn't go well to start, but the Sens fought back, giving a little bit of hope, something to build off. But this was a sleepy offseason as far as Ottawa Senators offseason goes. Like, really, the only move they made after the draft was signing Lars Eller and then a couple other minor league moves and moving guys around and things like that. The biggest news have come off the ice, which we'll get into. But I really think that this is a year the Ottawa Senators can look at and be like, all right, a lot of our core guys, Tim Stützle, Jake Sanderson, Brady Tkachuk, these guys finally got some playoff experience. And you got to get experience to have experience, and they finally got some. So now next time, hopefully this season, when they go to the playoffs, it's not bright lights. Is the stage too big? You're getting those jitters. They're going to be ready for it. And I think there's a lot of these young guys that they can build off of. Guys like Ridley Gregg, Shane Pinto, and some newcomers like Dylan Cousins, Fabian Zetterlund, and the newest addition, Jordan Spence, who Sens fans are very excited about that deal at the draft. So yeah, it's a fun time to be an Ottawa Senators fan.
How important is Spence? Because I know the defensive depth was an issue last year. How important is it that he contributes and helps solve some of that problem?
Well, initially, it was kind of looked at as the Ottawa Senators need to find Nick Jensen insurance. Nick Jensen is the player they acquired in the Jacob Chikrin trade from the Washington Capitals, and he played alongside Thomas Chabot pretty much all season, and it was a match made in heaven. These two had such good chemistry. He elevated Thomas Chabot's game, allowed Chabot to play his game. That's a guy that has been in the Ottawa Senators organization for a long time, Chabot, and he's been anchored with some terrible defense partners. And he's had to be the number one guy, the top soldier, putting up 25 plus minutes a night average ice time. And finally, he gets a guy that works with him in Nick Jensen. However, getting close to the end of the season and the playoffs, Jensen was kind of a continuous day-to-day guy. Like, we didn't know he might not practice today, but doesn't mean he's not going to play. He might look shaky in warm-ups. Maybe we'll dial back his minutes. Or it was just a kind of touch-and-go situation. He did end up having surgery in the offseason, and it's expected that he's not going to be ready to start when the season comes around in October. So Jordan Spence was brought in to be like, hey, we don't know how serious this injury is with Nick Jensen, and we're going to need at least a bottom four defenseman because Nick Jensen played second pair minutes with Thomas Chabot, and they have a guy in Nicholas Matimpalo that they really like, but he's a third pair guy, and a lot of Sens fans are excited about Carter Yakimchuk, a guy that they drafted 7th overall a couple of years ago, but I would really like to have Carter Yakimchuk earn that opportunity rather than be like, hey, we got this spot here, we need you to take it, let's see how this goes. That's not a good way to develop your prized blue chip prospect. So bringing in Jordan Spence from a great deal in the draft where really the Sens traded back from 21 to 23 and they end up getting a third-round pick. They end up moving that third-round pick to the LA Kings, along with a sixth rounder, I think. And that brings back Jordan Spence, a nice right shot, young defenseman, only 1 year on his deal. Then he's an RFA. So you get some control there. I think Jordan Spence is going to work out nicely. And it just seemed like he fell out of favor with the management and coaching staff, and he wasn't going to get the opportunities that he and the staff felt he deserved. So on to Ottawa and new opportunities.
There you go. The arena situation has been an ongoing thing for the Senators. Some progress seems to have been made this offseason. Where are we, and how, even with this recent news, how far off are we from even breaking ground on a new arena?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's so exciting you see the big headlines. Sens agree on deal with NCC to purchase land at LeBreton Flats. Now, if you're not from Ottawa, you probably don't understand where that is, but it's close to the downtown area. Beautiful spot. You got Parliament Hill in the background of it. It's been vacant land for a long time, but it hasn't been vacant land because it's just sitting there. It's been vacant land because there's hazardous waste issues. Like it's prime real estate in a tough situation. But it was the best spot if the Ottawa Senators wanted to have an arena that's not half an hour away from their downtown in Canada. Don't get me wrong, I love the CTC, but if you're an NHL team, you want your arena to be in the heart of the city for so many reasons. So to answer your question, how far away are they from breaking ground? A long time. This is a huge deal because they finally got a deal done. Before, in years past, it was like, yeah, they're working on it. We got some AI renderings. We got an architect that said it's going to look like this. Everything's so pretty. It's so exciting. Well, how close are they? And Ottawa is the capital city of Canada, so it's a government town, and that puts up a lot of red tape, obstacles, a lot of paperwork. You got to move around. So the process is a little bit slower than it would be in just any other city, really, I imagine. And Michael Andlauer has been frustrated by that. But the Ottawa Senators have purchased 11 acres of land at LeBreton Flats for around $30 million. And they're going to hope to start working on that hazardous waste, which you don't want to have that at your arena. So it's going to be a while. And Ross and I have famously said, Gil, as soon as they're ready, they have our numbers. The Ottawa Senators, they can call us. We'll bring our shovels. We'll start shoveling. We're podcasters, so the work we're going to put in a blue-collar setting, probably not that up to standard, but we will help if need be because we want to get this arena done. It's going to be so exciting to have an arena in downtown Ottawa.
Yeah, it would be really big for this team. Where is this team right now? I mean, the Atlantic is a very competitive division. What is the most important factor for them to build on last year's ending of that playoff drought?
So, like I mentioned, it was a bit of a sleepy offseason for the Ottawa Senators, and I think that confused a lot of people, maybe that aren't watching the Sens closely, or maybe just overall hockey fans. And they're like, wait, this team's been in a playoff drought for 7 years. They finally make the playoffs. They got beat by their rivals, the Leafs, again in the playoffs. You think, all right, we got the pieces. Let's push in. Let's make some big moves here so we can take that next step. Well, the Ottawa Senators didn't really do that. And I think this is a smart thing to do because they have so many of their young players that are in their early 20s and are just going to get better and better and better. And you can hopefully count on that progression from your core guys as a way to elevate your team's overall play. And then a big one is Steve Staios made his big moves at the trade deadline, which is rare because normally at the trade deadline, you get a rental, you trade a draft pick, he plays part of the season in the playoffs, and then he moves on, right? That's a typical deadline move. But Steve Staios was able to get Dylan Cousins, big trade Josh Norris away, two similar guys with similar contracts. But Dylan Cousins was only there for, 25 games, something like that. Now, he actually stepped in pretty nicely because he had a similar role to what he had in Buffalo. But then a guy in Fabian Zetterlund, who they acquired with 27 seconds left in the deadline. It was a quick deal, got to get it done. But Steve Staios wanted him. He got it done. He had a harder time transitioning, spent time on the fourth line when he was used to being a top six power play guy in San Jose, obviously. And then eventually they found ways to work him in and get him more ice time. But this is going to be different now because now he's signed an extension already, Zetterlund. He's got an understanding of what he needs to do, what's expected of him, and he's going to be placed in better positions to succeed, likely going to start in the top six, likely going to start on the second power play. And Sens fans that watched him play, he really showed nice play, but the points weren't there. He got kind of snake bitten. So I think the deadline acquisitions and the young players getting better with time is really going to boost this team. But overall, where they are, I think they're going to be in a spot where you're hoping they're not clawing for that final wild card spot. You're hoping they're kind of holding that top wild card spot and pushing to get into that top 3 into the Atlantic Division. Now, I don't think they're going to get ahead of the Florida teams, but maybe with the Leafs, the Marner deal or trade, we'll see how that affects a major shakeup. And keep in mind, the Ottawa Senators were only 2 points back from the Florida Panthers in the regular season. Now, obviously, that sounds a little funny because they are nowhere near the team that the 2-time Stanley Cup defending champions are. I'm not saying that. But as far as being in the hunt for that 3rd place in the division, they were close. So I think with some improvements, more experience, hopefully you get some good health. And this team, in my opinion, should be a top wildcard team fighting for a 3rd spot in the Atlantic Division.
All right, Brandon, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you and your co-host on social media?
Yeah, will do. This is usually Ross's department, Gil, so I'm going to do my best here. But you can find us on X at Sens Central. You can find us on Instagram, lockedon.senators. Ross has got the TikToks going as well. You can find us on YouTube, where we post all our episodes, some shorts, some clips, things like that. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, obviously. And when you're done listening to Locked On NHL and Locked On Islanders, give Locked On Senators a chance here, because we got some fun stuff going. We do a Ring of Honor, which is like a draft where we pick a topic and then 3 of us have to duke it out to get the best team. We're doing a Ottawa Senators versus series. So we've done how do the Ottawa Senators centers stack up against the rest of the Atlantic Division? How do their wingers, how do their defense? And coming up tomorrow or this week is going to be how do their goalies stack up? So we've been comparing them within the division as well. And then we're going to get our organizational value rankings going, which is where we rank every single player, all 64 in the Ottawa Senators organization. So you can get a sense of where guys stand in their organization as far as we see.
Excellent. Brandon, thank you so much.
No problem, Gil. Thanks.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. College football is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than the energy of tailgates and being in the stands with your fellow fans. The only downside, trying to get tickets, endless queues, hidden fees, and prices that jump at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as $25. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today.